Right. Thank you very much, Jean-Paul. Yes, indeed. I mean, just for everyone inside ISWA, so the International Solid Waste Association, we've got several working groups. One of them being, as you just mentioned, Jean-Paul, the hazardous waste one, but there's also the healthcare one, taking care of let's say everything related to the health sector, so hospital waste management indeed, but others, and we've got landfill group, etc. So in this case, effectively inside the hazardous waste group activities in the last years, some of them have been related to some work concerning the household hazardous waste. So it's a subject that definitely attracts some attention in the last, I would say, 3 to 4, maximum 5 years, at least internally in this working group I mentioned. I don't mean, of course, that it might have got the attention of other competent authorities, administrations, and the waste management sector in general since longer ago. But at least in what's related to the hazardous waste group, this is there is a group of people inside the group. That has been carrying some investigation and work and trying to compare different systems, etc. So we will try to summarize that as best as we can and go directly into, let's say, the do's and don'ts of these interesting subjects. All right. So I'll move on. I was told by the organization that some of the subjects were already covered in some previous webinars. Above all, the definition of what is household hazardous waste, etc. So we won't let's say spend too much time, and I will go directly on the parts that I understand have not been covered so far. As well, there is my colleague Clément Leveau coming after myself that will speak about transport collection, handling, treatment, etc. So some of the slides that I produced concerning this subject, I hope you also understand that I will jump pretty quickly on them so that Clément can speak everything in detail about them. All right. So as I said, we will move on the definition or the description of what's household hazardous waste, because that has already been covered. We all know, of course, that it's chemical products and many other types because they're toxic, flammable, corrosive, reactive, etc., which would be the general definition. So I move on that, and I go directly on the regulatory and the policy context. It's true that before extended producer responsibility schemes appeared, we were depending on the country, we were already taking care of household hazardous waste. But I would tend to say that the EPR schemes, without, let's say, entering and too much on the analysis of the good aspects or bad aspects of the EPR, if there would be some, they have definitely developed or extended. As well, extended is also part of the definition of the word itself, but they have extended, let's say, the management of household hazardous waste. Either directly or indirectly. The motivations are different, of course. As everyone knows, extended producer responsibility is based on some particular types of waste that have particular types of management schemes for them to be properly treated. But I think that they have had an important positive consequence, I would say, on the way the household hazardous waste have been managed. I think they have increased their the management of them. We've got many different types of national hazardous waste regulations, which, of course, depending on the country, makes municipalities having different schemes, different obligations. So what we're trying to say here is that the motivations of managing household hazardous waste can come from different legal structures or legal frameworks. Effectively, there's also occupational health and safety requirements that are making them having to be managed properly, irrespectively sometimes of maybe extended producer responsibility schemes or not. So that also participates on the framework, on the obligations of managing them, and obviously environmental protection laws as a more general aspect. So a key principle, I think, to finish this slide, is that household hazardous waste must be managed separately from non-hazardous household waste. It's not always easy because many times they are mixed, and we will see that a little bit later, which creates a big issue for the waste management sector because of risks, because of dangerousness, because of accidents, etc., that occur because of that. But definitely, considering that a very important principle in a sound waste management scheme is that the sooner on the chain we are taking care of a problem, the better it will be. So of course, if we can separate them at source, it will make the management easier and the cost lower, etc., etc. Okay, so I move on then on waste prevention and minimization. So I mean, it might sound like common sense sometimes, or most of the times, by the way, but despite having to manage household hazardous waste, we should never forget, of course, some principles and reduce and minimize, because of course, if we have less waste to manage, well, it will make it easier to manage it, of course. Then promote safer alternatives and obviously reuse and share. It's true that maybe sharing household hazardous waste, meaning household sharing chemical products, etc., it's not an easy thing to do. So I think it's more an interesting objective, but difficult to put into practice. But in any case, it's something to take into account. No doubt about that. So examples in terms of how to try to reduce, minimize, having safer alternatives and reuse and share. Definitely eco-labeling, because it will help to reduce and minimize if things are properly described, properly labeled, etc. Then having public awareness campaigns will definitely allow to the public in general to have a bigger awareness, and therefore having safer ways to manage, to handle, to store, to keep their household hazardous waste. And the reuse, of course, more than I share, because not to repeat myself, but as I say, sharing is a little bit difficult. I mean, sharing a pesticide or sharing a chemical product, it's not impossible, but life shows that it's not that simple. But definitely the reuse could be an important aspect on this point. Okay, so we go to proper segregation at source. What we said in two slides ago, definitely the sooner we segregate, the sooner we separate on the chain as much upstream as possible, it will obviously help and benefit everything else on the chain on the downstream. I mean, my colleague afterwards will explain a lot of that and will give a lot of examples and will show the consequences for the waste management sector of not having a proper segregation at source, and the difficulties that it causes, and the increases on the budgets that unfortunately occur because of the fact that the waste is more difficult and therefore more expensive than what it was forecasted in a yearly budget on this side of story. So segregation, very important. Household hazardous waste must be identified and separated by household. So ideally, therefore, what we were saying earlier, campaigns, awareness campaigns, making sure that people at least know the difference between paints and resins and glues, and it's not people obviously don't have to be specialists and chemical engineers, but having a certain minimum of, let's say, general culture on this aspect will definitely help with the management afterwards. So consequences of poor segregation will be mentioned afterwards. I won't go deeper on it. Accessible and safe collection systems. I think this is probably one of the most important points, at least for me, in what the municipalities and administrations should concentrate, because I think that, I mean, obviously based on their budgets, and I know that there's always a lot of tension on this part, but definitely if the administrations are making it easier for a household to be able to deliver their out of date chemical products that they might have, or let's say the mostly finished bottles with maybe a bottom of chemical product left, etc., or contaminated packages, and well, you know, all these type of household hazardous waste that have already been defined and described in previous webinars, as far as I understood. If there are different options for households to be able to deliver it, and let's say at a relatively short distance from their neighborhoods, and avoiding having to take a car or a transport to be able to bring, and therefore making maybe a weekly or every 2 weeks collection at every home, etc., or apartment building, is definitely something that we have already seen that in developed countries, at least, but it's something to keep developing. Because some countries have, for instance, what we call green points, where people are, let's say, going to deliver their household hazardous waste. But sometimes there are not enough green points, or they are difficult to reach, or the people again have to take their own car to be able to get there, and obviously that sometimes demotivates. But I mean, there is a balance to be found. Of course, it's not easy, but definitely this is an important point. Last little detail inside this slide is the retail take-back schemes. We've seen that we see that with the mercury vapor lamps, for example. We see that with batteries. We see that with different types of, but definitely not all the products. I mean, I would just give an example. Maybe giving an old paint can, for example, you cannot be many times delivered at the same shop where the household bought it. So that definitely makes it. Then they need to go to a green point. Maybe the green point again, it's too far, etc., etc. So this is definitely one of the main subjects to think about when trying to build up a household hazardous waste scheme. Collection scheme, sorry. Safe storage and handling. I won't go too much into that, because again, this will be spoken afterwards, but definitely there has to be appropriate containers and labeling. Let's not forget that some chemicals are not compatible with some others, so therefore they shouldn't be stored in the same place, or at least at a safe distance, etc. So these are definitely things to take into account, but they will be spoken in the next presentation. Environmentally sound treatment disposal as well. This will be discussed by the next presenter, but prioritize just some big aspects that need to be taken into account. Prioritize recycling and recovery. That's not only for household hazardous waste. This is in general for the whole waste management sector. Use licensed facilities. it's obvious to say, but still important. We should use licensed facilities to treat in an environmental sound manner hazardous waste, and the system has to ensure a total traceability from cradle to grave. This is definitely the approach. The best approach of traceability is a cradle to grave approach, and being able to demonstrate every single movement of the waste from its generation to its treatment disposal. Do's and don'ts then from in terms of at least our experience, what we see do's for local authorities. Well, establish clear household hazardous waste strategies and policies. See what are they covering, what they're not covering. If they're not covering, what else is covering it? So, for instance, the start of we were speaking earlier about EPR scheme, extended producer responsibility schemes. So okay, I mean, I'm taking care of this, but maybe we don't take care of this product, but then there is an EPR scheme. There isn't an EPR scheme. So if there isn't, what happens with the waste then, etc. So that's very much very important to take into account. Provide accessible collection infrastructure. That's what we were mentioning it. Somehow we need to find a balance between what's possible and what's not, but at the same time, with the budget available, we should consider the possibility of making it as easy as possible for households to deliver their chemical products, their hazardous waste. Communicate clearly with residents what's possible, what's not possible, when where should they deliver. Honestly, myself, even as a let's say an end user or a final consumer, I would tend to say that communication is we don't always have enough information of what's available for me to deliver my household hazardous waste. And very important, coordinate with producers and operators. In this case, I would tend to say more coordinate with operators for local competent authorities, because let's say households are a part of have definitely a level of responsibility, but at the same time, local authorities have to let's say be the link between, let's say, the upstream part of the chain, which we could say are the households, and the downstream part of the chain, which are operators. Don'ts for local authorities. What we would say is do not treat household hazardous waste as regular municipal waste, because obviously, whether we like it or not, both types of waste are treated totally differently, and therefore they shouldn't be treated and managed in the same way. Don't rely solely on voluntary participation, because that's let's say, if you allow me to say this way, is a very optimistic approach. And sadly, we like it or not, human beings, we are like we are, and therefore it's good to expect a certain level of voluntary participation, but at the same time, there has to be a system, a structure that makes things managed properly. And don't underestimate communication needs. It's a little bit, as you've seen what we said on the left hand side of the slide. Communicate clearly with residents. So as you can see, this is definitely the other side of the story. And don't underestimate communication needs. And do not ignore data collection and reporting. This is maybe something a little bit like more modern, we could say, or something that data intelligence has become something that definitely helps to improve. I would intend to say, more than seeing what's being done properly, which hopefully we should be already aware of that. It will definitely help us to maximize the improvements on what's not covered properly or being done properly. So data definitely becomes data collection and reporting definitely becomes a very important, and with the appearance of the artificial intelligence, etc. Of course, this is all related to it. I will pass this one because the do's and don'ts for waste management operators. Because again, my next the next presenter I think will cover most of it. So I'll skip this slide, and what and then the last three slides we wanted to, let's say, reinforce some of the messages beside the take-home messages, which is the third slide out of these last three. We wanted to reinforce some of the messages that as you've heard, we understand are important. Communication and public awareness, clear instructions to households. Again, I repeat, I was saying it. It's not always clear where can I deliver it, or where I'm delivering it, what can I and can I not deliver. If I'm going to a retail shop, maybe I'm expecting any kind of product, but in that shop it's only for mercury vapor lamps. In another one is only for batteries. In the pharmacies, I can only. It might seem common sense, but I can only deliver, of course, obsolete medicines and nothing else. So clear instructions to households to make sure that precisely we are shaping as best as we can what we were saying that is very important, the upstream part of the chain, because the better we segregate the waste, the better it will be managed, and or the more easily managed it will be down the chain. Simple visual guides and signage. I think that's it goes together with clear instructions, but still, it's the form of them has to be simple visual guides and signage, so that people are can easily, let's say, make their own segregation and correct segregation at source whenever they're delivering household hazardous waste. And then feedback to citizens on outcomes. I think that, the word responsibility is a word that we many times use. I mean, we're all responsible of something or a part of the chain, but many times we are, let's say, not told what's working, what's not working, etc. So feedback to citizens on outcomes, with reports, with maybe contamination that unfortunately is happening because for whatever reason we have not managed to find the proper way to handle this matter. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but it's part of the road to make it work. So definitely feedback on citizens on outcomes is an important point. And what are we looking for? Which are the, let's say, the positive outcomes that we would like, thanks to a good communication and public awareness? Well, better participation, definitely. Lower contamination, because lower contamination has a general term of, if I'm managing well or properly waste, well, then obviously there will be definitely less probability of having a spread of contamination. And above all, or last but not least, I would say, better to say, safer operations, because the waste will be better segregated, will be delivered where it should be delivered and not where it shouldn't be, etc. And that's also definitely an important part of it. Common challenges. So just last two slides. Low public participation. That's definitely a challenge, and therefore communication and public awareness again is hopefully will fight this. Cost and logistical constraints. It's a challenge, because it's what we said. I mean, if we try to make it very easy for household, obviously that should be the objective, to deliver their hazardous waste. But making it easy, meaning having a lot of collection points, which would make it easy, but that doesn't fit with the budget, most probably. So therefore, it's a challenge, and I think everyone in the sector realizes that, and the local authorities having difficulties to fit in their budget the best possible collection and logistical systems. That definitely is an issue. but still. And misidentification of household hazardous waste, that's what we said. I mean, if they are delivered in places where they shouldn't be delivered, if they are not correctly labeled, if there is not a good public awareness of it, etc., well, then there will be a misidentification of hazardous waste. If there is a misidentification of household hazardous waste, then the problem is that it will be more difficult to transport it, it will be more difficult to handle it, and it will be more difficult to treat it. And that's when also the budgets, the costs are increasing, and then the budgets that the administration have thought to be are not met at the end of the day. And unfortunately, there is an increase on the cost of waste management, much more than what's budgeted, which is, of course, not any organization, whether public or private, does not like when its budget is not met, of course. And regulatory complexity. It's true that sometimes hazardous waste are many times tend to, let's say, that they are more put on the industrial side, and we tend to forget. And sometimes because of the fact that they come from households, then they are not, let's say, treated in a regulatory point of view as hazardous waste, simply because the origin is household and not industry. That is something that sometimes is unclear, even for ourselves that are in the waste management sector. It is very clear, or at least clear enough, when the source is industrial, but when it's household, then things tend to be a little bit more disseminated and in a regulatory point of view, and that shouldn't be. At the end of the day, waste is waste. And if it's chemical, if it's dangerous, if it's hazardous, it's hazardous. Doesn't matter whether it was produced in a flat or in a house, or in a factory, obviously. Key takeaways. Just the last slide. We should. Yeah. Is it okay, Jean-Paul? Yeah.
Yeah, just really wrap up very quickly.
Yeah, so it's a wrap up. So dedicated systems. So we definitely, household hazardous waste requires dedicated management systems. We've seen it. There should be prevention and segregation, because they are foundational to this sector, for the good management of household hazardous waste. Safety and training are not negotiable. Let's say it's part of everything. So therefore, they should be. That this is why we need dedicated systems. This is why we need prevention and segregation, etc. So that together with properly trained people managing or handling this waste, then they will do it. They will be able to do it in the safest way possible, and clear roles for authorities and operators. We said it at some point. We said that if we simplify the chain by households, then authorities in the middle and operators down the chain, there has to be clear roles for authorities and operators in this chain to make sure that this chain manages as good as well as possible. And then good management in general terms, in fact, not only for waste, but I mean, obviously this is what we are concerned today in this webinar, but good management is a shared responsibility between the three, let's say, main stakeholders in this chain: households as producers of the waste, authorities as the link between household and operators because they have the responsibility at the end to properly manage the waste, the household hazardous waste that they are receiving.